2 hours ago, I watched my former mother-in-law count to 6. Not out loud. Not with her voice. With her fingers. 6 years. 6 years she believed had disappeared exactly the way she planned. 6 years she thought she had erased from my life, my marriage, and my future. She stood at the center of a crowded banquet hall holding a glass of sparkling water and smiling at people who still believed she was the most respected woman in the county. And then she saw a single envelope, an ordinary envelope, cream-colored, no larger than a tax document, no dramatic markings, no warning, just paper, the kind of paper that changes everything. When she saw it, her smile stopped, not disappeared. Stopped. Like a machine losing power. The room was loud. People were talking. Silverware touched plates. Someone laughed near the stage. A waiter dropped a fork. But for 1 second, I noticed something strange. She wasn't looking at me. She wasn't looking at her son. She wasn't looking at the guests. She was staring at that envelope because she recognized it and because she knew exactly what was inside. The strange part, she had spent 6 years making sure I would never see it. Welcome back to Reality Drama Story, where family secrets unfold and quiet decisions change everything. If you are new here, drop a comment and subscribe. Now let's get into it. My name is Emma Carter. I am 36 years old. For most of my life, I believed truth worked like a foundation. If the foundation was strong enough, eventually everything built on top of it would stand. My grandfather taught me that. He was a carpenter, not a wealthy man, not an educated man. But he could look at a building and tell you exactly where the weakness lived. People are the same way. He used to tell me, most collapses start long before anybody hears the noise. When I was 10 years old, he took me to a construction site. A new church was being built. Everyone admired the walls. Everyone admired the roof. My grandfather spent 20 minutes staring at the concrete underneath. Then he pointed to a crack. Nobody else saw it. 2 months later, that entire section had to be rebuilt. I never forgot that lesson. Years later, I married Daniel Foster, and I failed to see the crack. Not because it wasn't there, because someone spent years covering it. Her name was Evelyn Foster, my mother-in-law. If you met her once, you would probably like her. Most people did. She volunteered at charities, hosted fundraisers, donated to schools, remembered birthdays, sent flowers. She understood something powerful. People trust appearances. And Evelyn was an expert architect of appearances. When Daniel and I got married, she welcomed me warmly, at least on the surface. She hugged me, bought me gifts, called me daughter, introduced me proudly. But there was always something underneath, something small, something difficult to explain. The comments arrived like tiny scratches. You work so much. You'll settle down eventually. Family should come first. Women regret waiting. Nothing openly hostile. Nothing obvious. Just enough. The kind of pressure that slowly changes the shape of a person's life. The first year of marriage was wonderful. The second year was mostly wonderful. The third year was different. No children yet. Suddenly every family dinner included questions. Every holiday included suggestions. Every conversation somehow returned to babies. Then doctors entered the picture. Evelyn knew someone. Of course she did. She always knew someone. Dr. Harold Mercer, fertility specialist. Highly respected, trusted, experienced. Daniel agreed immediately. His mother insisted. I trusted both of them. That was my mistake. The first appointment lasted 40 minutes. The second lasted 30. The diagnosis took less than 5. Dr. Mercer folded his hands, looked at me kindly, and explained that my fertility numbers were concerning. Not impossible, just concerning. The language was careful, professional, measured. The kind of language that leaves room for hope while quietly removing it. Months became years. More tests, more appointments, more medication, more disappointment. Each visit seemed to confirm the previous one. The story never changed. The problem was me, always me. Daniel tried to be supportive, at first. Then support slowly became distance. Distance became silence. Silence became frustration. And frustration became absence. I noticed him staying late at work. I noticed him answering fewer questions. I noticed him spending more time with Evelyn. But I was too busy blaming myself to notice the foundation cracking beneath us. By year 5, I barely recognized my own life. I measured months by appointments. I measured holidays by disappointment. I measured myself by medical reports. The woman I used to be seemed very far away. Then something happened. A small thing. The kind of thing most people would forget. Our next door neighbor moved in. His name was Jack Sullivan, county sheriff, recently retired, 42 years old. Quiet, polite, kept his lawn perfect. The first conversation we ever had lasted 20 seconds. My trash bin had fallen over during a storm. He stood it back up, said good morning, then left. That was it. No drama. No speeches. No attempts to impress anyone. Just competence. My grandfather would have liked him, because Jack paid attention. The first real conversation happened 6 months later. I was sitting on my porch after another appointment. Another disappointing appointment. Another reminder that I was apparently broken. Jack walked past, stopped, looked at me, then asked one question. Has anybody ever given you a second opinion? Simple question. Simple words. But something about them bothered me, because the answer was no. Not really. Every specialist had somehow come through Dr. Mercer. Every recommendation connected back to Evelyn. Every road eventually returned to the same place. That night, I couldn't sleep. The question stayed with me. The next morning, I requested copies of every medical record from the previous 6 years. Legally, they had to provide them. The clinic delayed, then delayed again, then delayed again. Finally, 23 days later, a package arrived. 3 thick folders. I sat at my kitchen table and started reading. Carefully, systematically, page by page, date by date, like my grandfather inspecting concrete. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then I noticed a number. 1 hormone result. A value that looked strange. I checked the laboratory range. Normal. The doctor's handwritten note beside it labeled it abnormal. I frowned. Then I checked another result. Same thing. Then another. And another. My stomach tightened. I spent 6 hours reviewing records. By midnight, I had identified 17 inconsistencies. 17. Not opinions. Not interpretations. Numbers. Actual numbers. Changed. Adjusted. Misrepresented. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't call Evelyn. I didn't confront anyone. Instead, I called an independent fertility center 2 counties away. 3 weeks later, I received new testing. Completely independent. No connections. No referrals. No Evelyn. No Dr. Mercer. The results arrived 4 days later. Every number normal. Every category normal. Every measurement normal. I sat in my car holding the report. The parking lot was empty. The engine was off. The world felt silent. 6 years. 6 years of believing something that wasn't true. 6 years of building my life around a lie. If this story is hitting close, drop a comment and stay with me, because what happens next is something none of them were ready for. The secret weapon entered my life 5 days later, And it wasn't dramatic. It was paperwork. Specifically, a legal filing. Jack helped me find it. Public records. Accessible to anyone who knew where to look. What we discovered changed everything. For 6 consecutive years, Evelyn's family foundation had issued annual consulting payments to Dr. Mercer's clinic. Year 1, $8,000. Year 2, $10,500. Year 3, $12,000. Year 4, $15,000. Year 5, $18,000. Year 6, $20,000. Total, $83,500. The dates aligned perfectly. Every payment corresponded directly with periods of my treatment. That alone looked suspicious. But the real discovery came later, buried inside a trust amendment filed on March 18th. 3 years earlier, the document contained a private inheritance clause. A specific clause. A terrifying clause. Daniel's inheritance would transfer only if he produced a biological heir before his 40th birthday. Otherwise, millions would move into charitable distribution. Daniel didn't know. I confirmed that later. Evelyn knew. The attorneys knew. Nobody else. Suddenly everything made sense. The pressure. The appointments. The blame. The urgency. Someone needed a villain. Someone needed a reason. Someone needed Daniel convinced the problem lived somewhere other than his own family. The foundation crack wasn't hidden anymore. Now I could see the entire structure. I hired an attorney. Quietly. Collected records. Quietly. Gathered financial documents. Quietly. And waited. 3 months later, Evelyn hosted her annual foundation gala. 300 guests. Local business leaders. Judges. Doctors. Politicians. The entire county. Her favorite stage. Her favorite audience. I attended. Alone. Blue dress. Simple necklace. No speeches prepared. No dramatic plans. Just observation. The banquet hall contained 42 tables. 312 guests. 6 crystal chandeliers. 24 servers. And 1 woman who believed she controlled every outcome. I watched. That was all. Watched. Evelyn's name was mentioned 27 times during introductions. 27. I counted. Because details matter. The same way my grandfather counted support beams. The same way Jack counted evidence. The same way attorneys count signatures. Then the envelope arrived. Hand-delivered. Certified. Official. The State Medical Board. Investigation notice. Formal audit. Immediate compliance required. I saw Evelyn read the first line. Then the second. Then stop breathing for just a moment. The room continued moving. But something fundamental had shifted. A crack had finally become visible. Over the next 3 weeks, everything accelerated. Auditors arrived. Records were subpoenaed. Electronic files were examined. Original laboratory data was recovered. Financial transactions were reviewed. Dr. Mercer hired lawyers. Then additional lawyers. Then different lawyers. The evidence kept growing. Eventually, Daniel came to my house. The first time in nearly 4 months. He looked exhausted. Older. Smaller somehow. Like someone discovering the building he trusted had been standing on unstable ground. He sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I reviewed the records. The same table where I learned the truth. And he asked one question. Did you know? I considered the question carefully, then nodded. Yes. When? 3 months ago. He looked away. I noticed his hands shaking. Mine weren't. That surprised me. After everything, mine were steady. Then Daniel asked another question. The real question. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who canceled appointments because his mother suggested it. At the man who accepted conclusions without questions. At the man who trusted convenience over evidence. And I answered honestly. Would you have believed me? Silence. Long silence. Because we both knew the answer. No. He wouldn't have. Not then. Not yet. A week later, Evelyn appeared at my front door. Anger first. Exactly as expected. She accused me of destroying the family. Destroying reputations. Destroying businesses. Destroying futures. I listened. Calmly. When anger failed, she changed tactics. Manipulation. She offered money. Property. A revised settlement. A fresh start. I listened. Calmly. When manipulation failed, she tried something unexpected. Tears. Real tears. Or convincing ones. Sometimes the difference doesn't matter. She spoke about sacrifice. About motherhood. About fear. About protecting her son. About family legacy. And for the first time I saw something genuine underneath the performance. Fear. Not fear of losing money. Fear of losing control. The architect watching her own structure collapse. Then Jack spoke. He had been standing quietly near the doorway, listening, observing, the way sheriffs do, the way good men do. He looked at Evelyn and said something I still remember word for word. When people spend years hiding the truth, they start believing exposure is cruelty. The room became silent. Evelyn stared at him, then looked at me, then left. No dramatic exit. No shouting. Just departure. Like a person realizing the building cannot be saved. The investigation concluded 89 days later. Dr. Mercer lost his medical license. Permanently. The state issued findings covering altered records, fraudulent reporting, and financial misconduct. The clinic closed. 3 months after that, civil lawsuits followed. Settlements remained confidential, but public records showed enough. Evelyn's foundation paid heavily, very heavily. Daniel never inherited the money he expected. Ironically, the trust clause that motivated everything ultimately destroyed the very outcome Evelyn wanted. The estate reorganized. Assets were redistributed. The structure collapsed under its own weight. 1 year later, I found something while cleaning a drawer. An old photograph. My grandfather, standing beside a half-finished building, smiling. Pencil behind his ear. Concrete dust on his boots. On the back he had written a note. Just one sentence. Strong things survive inspection. I sat with that photograph for a long time, because that was the entire story. Not the marriage. Not the money. Not the investigation. Inspection. Truth survives inspection. Lies don't. Jack and I eventually married. Small ceremony. 18 guests. No chandeliers. No speeches. No foundation gala. Just people who actually cared. Some evenings we sit on the porch together. The same porch where he asked a simple question years ago. The question that changed everything. Has anybody ever given you a second opinion? Funny how entire lives can pivot on a single sentence. A single document. A single number. A single crack in the foundation. People often ask whether I hate Evelyn. I don't. Hate requires energy, and I spent enough years giving energy to things that weren't true. What I feel is something quieter. Understanding. Not forgiveness. Not approval. Understanding. She built an entire structure around fear, and fear always demands maintenance. Eventually, the cost becomes impossible. The truth is much cheaper. This is not revenge. This is arithmetic. If this story reminded you to know your worth, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, drop a comment, and I will see you in the next one.